The alarm shrieked through the barracks at 0400 hours, and Lieutenant Clara Bennett knew immediately something had gone wrong. Not because of the sound, but because of the silence that followed. No boots hit the floor. No grumbled curses from her squad. Nothing. She grabbed her sidearm and burst through the connecting door into the main quarters. What she found made her freeze mid-step. 7 Carthax warriors, each standing nearly 8 feet tall, with obsidian scales and razor-sharp claws, sat in a perfect circle on the metal floor. Her hairbrush, the cheap plastic one from Earth she'd brought on this god-forsaken mission, passed between their taloned hands like a sacred relic. "What are you doing?" Clara's voice came out strangled. Sergeant Vex, the most decorated predator in the Galactic Defense Corps, looked up with eyes that could track prey from 3 kilometers away. His crest, normally sleek and flat against his skull, stood in wild, uneven tufts. He'd been brushing it. Upward, upward. "Grooming ritual," Vex rumbled in his deep, clicking dialect. "We observed you performing this. We adapt human tactics." "That's not a tactic. That's personal hygiene." Too late. Private Zarn had already started on his own crest, dragging the brush through his scales with disturbing enthusiasm. The sound was like sandpaper on concrete. "Contact in 15 minutes, crackled through the calm. "Hostile Vryn forces approaching the perimeter. All units to stations." Clara lunged for her hairbrush. Vex's hand shot out faster, holding it just beyond her reach. "We deploy with battle mains," he said, dead serious, "like humans do before combat." "I don't have a battle main. I have bedhead." The compound shuddered. Plasma fire lit up the morning darkness outside. The Vryn weren't waiting for an invitation. Vex stood, his newly fluffed crest making him look absolutely ridiculous and somehow more terrifying. The other 6 Carthax rose with him, each sporting their own chaotic interpretation of human hairstyling. They looked like they'd been electrocuted. "Battle mains grant human ferocity," Vex declared, passing the hairbrush to Corporal Thez. "We channel this power." The wall exploded inward. Clara hit the deck as plasma bolts screamed overhead. Through the smoke and debris she saw them. 30 Vryn shock troopers, their exoskeletons gleaming with weapons. Vex roared and charged straight into the breach, his ridiculous crest standing proud. His squad followed, 7 deadly predators with absurd hairstyles, moving like death itself. The Vryn hesitated, just for a second. That second cost them everything. Clara scrambled to her feet, weapon raised, watching her squad tear through the enemy with enhanced aggression she'd never seen before. They actually believed the hairbrush made them stronger, and somehow, impossibly, they were fighting like it did. Right, next part, .txt. The Bryn commander made his fatal mistake when he laughed. Clara heard it through the chaos, a chittering, clicking sound of mockery as he pointed at Vex's wild crest, his mandibles spread in what passed for a grin among his species. Vex moved faster than Clara's eyes could track. One moment he stood among the rubble. The next, his claws were buried in the commander's thorax, lifting the Vryn clean off the ground. "You mock the battle main," Vex growled. "You mock human war culture." He threw the commander through 3 of his own soldiers. Clara sprinted toward the armory, ducking under plasma fire that melted the wall where her head had been. Behind her, the Carthax fought with something beyond their usual calculated precision. They fought with reckless confidence, with swagger, with the absolute certainty that their grooming ritual had made them invincible. Private Zarn took a plasma bolt to the shoulder that should have dropped him. Instead, he roared, patted his fluffed crest with his good hand, and launched himself at 5 Vryn troopers simultaneously. His claws found throats before they could scatter. "This is insane," Clara muttered, keying in the armory code. "This is completely insane, Lieutenant." Corporal Thez's voice boomed across the compound. "Your grooming implement, it is damaged." Clara's blood went cold. She spun to see Thez holding up her hairbrush, now missing half its bristles, shattered during the initial explosion. The effect on the Carthax was immediate and terrifying. Their movements became frenzied, protective. Vex abandoned his tactical position and charged across open ground, taking fire from 6 directions, just to reach Thez and verify the damage himself. "Fall back!" Clara screamed. "It's just a hairbrush." "Negative," Vex snarled, cradling the broken implement like a wounded comrade. "The sacred grooming tool must be preserved. We extract it to safety." More Vryn poured through the breach. 40, 50, too many to count. Their heavy weapons deployed, the kind that could level buildings. Clara grabbed a plasma rifle from the armory rack. "Listen to me. The hairbrush doesn't matter. It's not magic." Sergeant Vex locked eyes with her. His crest, despite the violence and the smoke and the fire, remained perfectly fluff. "Human Bennett," he said with absolute conviction, "you carry this implement across 7 star systems. You guard it when supplies run low. You use it before every mission brief. If it holds no power, why such devotion?" Clara's mouth opened, closed. She had no answer that wouldn't sound ridiculous. A Vryn heavy gunner opened fire. The plasma stream carved through the compound, vaporizing everything in its path. Vex shoved Clara behind a support column, taking a glancing hit across his side that burned through his armor. He didn't flinch. He looked down at the broken hairbrush in his hand, then at his squad. "New objective," he roared. "We hold this position. We protect the grooming implement. We show these Vryn what humans taught us about standing ground." Private Zarn laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "For the battle main!" The other Carthax took up the cry. "For the battle main!" They formed a defensive circle, 7 predators with ridiculous hairstyles facing down an army, all because they believed a $3 hairbrush from a pharmacy on Earth held the secret to human combat effectiveness. Clara raised her rifle. If they were going to die for her toiletries, she might as well make it count. The Vryn charged as 1. A wave of chitin and fury. Vex's claws extended to full length. His crest caught the light from the fires around them. "Show them," he commanded his squad, "how humans fight when cornered." The Carthax met the charge head-on, and Clara realized with sudden, horrifying clarity that they weren't fighting like Carthax anymore. They were fighting like they thought humans would fight. Aggressive, unpredictable, refusing to yield, even when tactical doctrine said they should, and it was working. Right next part.txt. The Vryn wave broke against the Carthax line like water against stone, except stone didn't rip and tear and refuse to die. Clara fired in controlled bursts, dropping Vryn as they tried to flank around the compound's eastern wall. Her squad had gone completely feral. Corporal Thez used a Vryn corpse as a club. Private Zarn fought with a plasma bolt still burning in his thigh, his fluffed crest now streaked with green Vryn blood that somehow made him look even more deranged. "Tactical retreat is still an option," Clara shouted over the weapon's fire. "Humans do not retreat," Vex bellowed back, his claws buried in 2 Vryn simultaneously. "We learned your history. Thermopylae, the Alamo, that place with the frozen lake. Those people all died." "Exactly." Vex sounded thrilled. "Glorious last stands. We understand now." A Vryn grenade arced through the air. Clara shot it mid-flight, the detonation showering them with shrapnel. A piece caught her arm, drawing blood. She ignored it. The Carthax saw the blood and went berserk. They wounded the battle-main human. Private Keth roared, his crest standing so high it actually quivered. "This cannot stand." What happened next violated every principle of rational military doctrine. The Carthax broke formation and charged, all 7 of them, straight into the heart of the Vryn force. abandoning cover and defensive positions to avenge a minor cut on Clara's arm. It should have been suicide. The Bryn heavy weapons turned, tracking the charging predators. Plasma cannons spun up, enough firepower to atomize an entire platoon. The Carthax hit the Vryn lines 3 seconds before the cannons could fire. Clara watched from behind her pillar as Sergeant Bex grabbed a heavy gunner by the barrel of his weapon and used him to bludgeon his own squad. Fez moved like liquid death, his claws finding the weak points in Bryn armor with surgical precision while his crest bobbed and weaved like he was performing some kind of dance. Zarn just kept laughing that horrible glass-breaking laugh, spreading terror through the enemy ranks. The Vryn commander, recovered from Vex's earlier throw, rallied his troops. "They are 7. We are Legion. Kill them!" His translator glitched on the last word, but the intent was clear. 50 Vryn converged on the Carthax position. Clara made her decision in a heartbeat. She grabbed 2 plasma grenades from the armory, primed them both, and sprinted into the open. "Vex! Catch!" She threw them with everything she had. Vex's hand shot up, snatching both grenades from the air without looking. His predator reflexes made the impossible casual. He glanced down at them, then at Clara, then at the packed Vryn formation surrounding his squad. His crest somehow fluffed even higher. "Human tactics," he said reverently, and threw both grenades straight down into the Vryn mass. The explosion lifted him and his entire squad off their feet. They rode the blast wave like surfers, landing in crouches at the perimeter of the crater they'd just created. Their armor was scorched. They passed the purpose to wear it. Their scales were cracked. Their ridiculous crests were singed and smoking. They looked absolutely triumphant. The remaining Vryn, maybe 20 of the original 80, hesitated. Clara could see their compound eyes flickering between the crater and the 7 predators who'd just weaponized their own position. "Retreat," the Vryn commander clicked. "These are not normal Carthax. These are corrupted. They fight like the humans do." He said it like a curse. The Vryn withdrew in disorder, leaving their dead behind. Clara kept her rifle trained on them until they disappeared into the jungle beyond the compound perimeter. Silence fell. The morning sun was rising, painting the smoke-filled air orange and red. Vex walked over to Clara, moving with a slight limp. He held out his hand. In his palm, somehow intact despite the explosions and the carnage, lay her hairbrush. "We preserved it," he said. "The battle-mane totem survives." Clara took it with numb fingers. Half the bristles were gone. It was covered in blood, 3 different colors. It smelled like burning plastic and ozone. "Thanks," she managed. Vex's crest drooped slightly, exhaustion finally catching up with him. "Lieutenant Bennett, we have question in human culture. Does the battle-mane ritual include the screaming? Private Keth wishes to know if he should scream while brushing for authenticity." Clara looked at her squad, 7 apex predators, decorated veterans of a dozen campaigns, the most feared warriors in the Galactic Defense Corps, waiting with genuine earnest curiosity for her answer about hair care routines. "Sure," she said. "Screaming is mandatory." Vex's eyes brightened. "We will practice." Somewhere in the distance, reinforcements were coming. Command was hailing on every channel, demanding status reports. The compound was a smoking ruin that would take weeks to rebuild, and her squad wanted hairbrushing lessons. Clara started laughing. She couldn't help it. Write nextpart.txt. The reinforcements arrived 30 minutes later. 3 dropships full of Galactic Defense Corps regulars who stopped dead when they saw the compound. Captain Holland was first off the ramp, his perfectly pressed uniform completely at odds with the smoking crater and scattered Vryn bodies. He stared at the Carthax squad standing in formation, their crests still magnificently fluffed despite the soot and blood. "Lieutenant Bennett," Holland said slowly, "what happened to your squad?" "Grooming incident, sir." Holland's eye twitched. Grooming. Yes, sir. Behind Holland, the regular troops were already spreading through the compound, documenting the carnage. 83 Vrin bodies. The entire eastern wall gone. Plasma scoring on every surface, and 7 Carthax warriors who looked like they'd stuck their heads in electrical sockets. A young private approached Vex cautiously. Sergeant, are you injured? Your crest appears to be malfunctioning. Vex drew himself to full height. This is Battlemane, human war ritual. It grants ferocity in combat. The private looked at Clara. She shrugged. The after-action report is going to be interesting, Holland muttered, pulling out his datapad. 80-plus hostiles neutralized by a single undermanned squad. How? They believed a hairbrush made them invincible, sir. Holland stopped typing. Say that again. My squad discovered my hairbrush. They thought it was a pre-combat ritual. They styled their crests before the attack and fought with enhanced aggression because they believed it made them more dangerous. Did it? Clara thought about Vex charging through plasma fire to protect a broken piece of plastic, about Zarn fighting with a bolt burning through his leg, about 7 predators holding off an army because they refused to let her down. Yes, sir, it did. Holland pinched the bridge of his nose. Command is not going to believe this. He was wrong. Command believed it immediately, because 3 hours later, every Carthax unit in the sector was demanding hairbrushes. The requests flooded in through official channels, through back channels, through personal messages to Clara's comm that crashed the local network twice. Admiral Kozlov himself called from the flagship. Lieutenant Bennett. His weathered face filled her screen. I have 200 Carthax warriors outside my office demanding grooming implements. They say you discovered a human combat technique that increases battlefield effectiveness by 40%. Is this true? Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The Vrin are retreating on 6 fronts. 6, Lieutenant. Carthax units are requesting immediate deployment with full grooming supply requisitions. The quartermaster is threatening to resign because he doesn't know how to source 10,000 hairbrushes by next Tuesday. Clara could hear the chaos behind him, voices shouting about bristle density and handle durability. Sir, they just need to believe it works. The hairbrush itself doesn't matter. That's not what Sergeant Vex is telling people. He's been on the comm for 2 hours explaining the sacred properties of synthetic bristles versus natural fiber. He has diagrams, Lieutenant. He made diagrams in the background of her own compound. Clara could see Vex holding court with a group of Carthax from the reinforcement teams. He was demonstrating proper brushing technique on Private Zarn, who stood perfectly still with an expression of pure bliss while his crest was styled into increasingly absurd configurations. We must brush upward, Vex was saying, never downward. Downward is defeat. Upward is victory. The human Clara taught us this. I never said that, Clara shouted. Vex turned to her with absolute sincerity. You demonstrated it every morning at 0600 hours. We observed through thermal imaging. Your hair defied gravity. We knew this was battle preparation. That was bedhead. We know, Vex said solemnly. The head of battle. Yes. Admiral Kozlov's face had gone through several colors, and he settled on resigned purple. Lieutenant, I'm promoting you to Special Combat Consultant and assigning you to develop a training program. You have 1 week to teach 500 Carthax warriors proper Battlemane protocol. Sir, this is insane. This is war, Lieutenant. The Vrin are terrified. They think we've weaponized human vanity. Their propaganda channels are calling it psychological warfare. They're withdrawing resources from contested zones to study human grooming rituals for weaknesses. He leaned closer to the screen. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The enemy is retreating because they think hairbrushes are weapons. Clara's mouth hung open. I'm shipping you 10,000 units by 0800 tomorrow. Teach them whatever you want. Just keep them fighting like they did today." Kozlov paused. "And, Lieutenant, get yourself a better hairbrush. Apparently, you're going to need it." The screen went dark. Clara turned to find her entire squad watching her with expressions of eager anticipation. Behind them, the reinforcement Carthax had formed an orderly line, each one holding some improvised grooming tool they'd scavenged from the ruins. "Battle main training begins now?" Vex asked hopefully. Clara looked at her broken hairbrush, at the assembled predators who'd turned a toiletry into a tactical advantage, at the smoking compound they defended because they believed in something stupid and human and completely irrational. She sighed. "Everyone form up. We're going to talk about conditioner." The cheer that went up rattled the remaining windows. Right next part.txt, the training facility on Forward Base Arcturus, had been designed for weapons drills and combat simulations. Now it hosted 200 Carthax warriors sitting cross-legged on the floor, while Clara stood at the front with a projection screen showing magnified images of hair follicles. "This is not what I signed up for," she muttered. "Speak louder." Someone shouted from the back. "We cannot hear the wisdom." Clara increased the volume on her mic. "Okay, listen. Hair care is not a military discipline. It's just personal maintenance." The Carthax erupted in protest, their crests bristling with agitation. Vex stood, silencing them with a gesture. "Lieutenant Bennett, we have studied the footage. Your species maintains elaborate grooming rituals. You have entire stores dedicated to hair products, thousands of chemical formulations, specialized tools, professionals who train for years." He gestured at the screen. "This is clearly an advanced weapons system. It's vanity." "Then why," Vex said quietly, "do humans prepare their appearance before important battles? Job interviews, you call them. Dates, court appearances, presentations. You arm yourselves with grooming before every confrontation." Clara opened her mouth, closed it. She'd never thought about it that way. Private Keth raised a claw. "Question: does the color of the grooming implement affect its power? I obtained a pink one from the quartermaster. Is pink stronger than blue?" "Color doesn't matter." Disappointed murmurs rippled through the crowd. "However," Clara added, watching them lean forward, "pink shows confidence. Using pink means you're not afraid of what the enemy thinks. That's a psychological advantage." Keth's crest fluffed with pride. Half the Carthax immediately started requesting pink hairbrushes on their datapads. This was spiraling out of control. The door burst open. Commander Price strode in, her expression grim. "We have a problem." Clara had never been so grateful for an interruption. What kind of problem? The kind where the Vryn just broadcast a galaxy-wide message declaring they've developed counter-grooming tactics. Price pulled up a hologram. "They're calling it Operation Shaved Head." The Carthax gasped in unison, a sound like wind through a tunnel. The hologram showed a Vryn commander standing before assembled troops, each one carrying what looked like industrial clippers and chemical spray tanks. "We have analyzed human battle preparation rituals," the translated voice clicked. "We will neutralize their grooming advantage. All Carthax will be forcibly decrested in combat. Their power source will be eliminated." Vex stood so fast, his chair clattered backward. "This is a war crime." "It's actually not," Price said. "Legal reviewed it. Weird battlefield tactic, but technically permissible." The training room exploded into chaos. Carthax warriors shouted over each other, their crests standing at full attention, claws extending reflexively. Several started making emergency requisitions for crest protection gear that didn't exist. Clara climbed onto a table. "Quiet." The room fell silent. "You want to know the real secret?" Clara said. "The real reason humans succeed, it's not the hairbrush. It's not the grooming. It's that we're too stubborn to quit even when the enemy has a good counter-strategy. She grabbed her hairbrush from her belt. The Vryn think they can scare you by threatening your crests? Good. Let them try. You know what humans would do? They'd shave their own heads first and dare the enemy to come up with a new plan. Vex's eyes widened. You would sacrifice the battle mane voluntarily? To win? Absolutely. Because the mane isn't the power. The power is in here. She tapped her chest. You fought like champions yesterday, not because of grooming products. You fought like champions because you believed you could win and refused to accept any other outcome. That's the human thing you copied. That's what scares the Vryn. The Carthax stared at her. Private Zarn stood slowly. He walked to the front of the room, picked up a combat knife from the equipment rack, and before anyone could stop him, he dragged it across his crest. Scales and fluff fell to the floor in clumps. His crest, his pride, his magnificent battle mane, gone in 3 seconds. He turned to face the assembled warriors, his head now sleek and scarred. Who else has courage? For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Vex stood. He walked to Zarn, took the knife, and shaved his own crest down to bare scales. Then Keth. Then Vez. Then every single Carthax in the room formed a line. Commander Price leaned close to Clara. You just started a military-wide head-shaving movement. Command is going to lose their minds. They already lost them when they requisitioned 10,000 hairbrushes. Within an hour, footage was spreading across the base. Carthax warriors voluntarily destroying their crests, making themselves look more alien and predatory than ever. No fluff, no style, just scarred scales and cold eyes. The Vryn intercepts came in 20 minutes later. Their communications were panicked, confused. The enemy had preemptively eliminated their own counter-tactic. What kind of species did that? What kind of warriors cared so little about their appearance that they disfigure themselves just to prove a point? Humans, apparently. And now the Carthax. Admiral Kozlov called again. His face filled the screen, and he looked like he'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. Lieutenant Bennett, I have 3,000 bald Carthax and a very angry quartermaster who just received 10,000 hairbrushes he can't return. What is happening? Clara stood at attention. Behind her, Vex and his completely hairless squad did the same. Sir, we're adapting to enemy tactics, just like humans do. Kozlov stared at them. Then, incredibly, he smiled. Carry on, Lieutenant. And for the record, you just won the war. The Vryn High Command surrendered 15 minutes ago. They cited psychological incompatibility with human-influenced forces. The call ended. The room erupted in celebration. Dozens of bald Carthax warriors cheering and embracing. Vex approached Clara, running a claw over his bare scales. We still keep the hairbrushes, though, yes? For when we grow them back? Clara laughed until her sides hurt. Yes, Sergeant. We keep the hairbrushes. Good. Vex said seriously. We may need them for the next war. Right, next part .txt. 6 months later, Clara stood in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Defense Corps headquarters on Earth, watching the most bizarre military ceremony in human history. 300 Carthax warriors stood in perfect formation, their crests fully regrown and styled in ways that defied physics. Vex had organized them by grooming complexity. The front row sported simple spikes. The back row looked like they'd survived artistic explosions. Every single one held a regulation-issued GDC hairbrush. The Secretary General of the United Earth Government stepped to the podium, clearly struggling to maintain diplomatic composure. Today we honor the Carthax integration units for their extraordinary service and for proving that cultural exchange between species can yield unexpected tactical advantages. Clara caught Vex's eye. He winked, an expression he'd learned specifically for occasions like this. The secretary continued. The Vryn Accord has held for 6 months. Hostilities have ceased across all fronts, and while historians will debate the causes for generations, we can all agree that the turning point came when 7 warriors decided that human grooming rituals were worth dying for. Applause filled the hall. Clara joined it, watching her squad stand taller. After the ceremony, Admiral Kozlov found her at the reception. "You know the real joke, Lieutenant?" The xenopsychology team analyzed the whole thing. Turns out the confidence boost from the grooming ritual actually did improve combat performance, measurably. The Carthax fought better because they believed they would, and belief is a hell of a weapon. So I accidentally created a legitimate tactical doctrine? You created the most ridiculous tactical doctrine in military history, and it won a war. He raised his glass. "Command is recommending you for the Star of Valor. Also, you're being assigned to the new Interspecies Cultural Integration Program. Congratulations." Clara groaned. "More training sessions? Would you prefer paperwork?" Before she could answer, Vex appeared with his entire squad behind him. Their crests formed a rainbow of styles, from Zarn's aggressive spikes to Theza's elaborate braids that must have taken hours. "Lieutenant Bennett," Vex said formally, "we have petition." "Oh no. We wish to learn additional human battle rituals, specifically the war paint you call makeup, and the armor enhancement known as nail polish." He held up a claw hopefully. "We believe these will provide further tactical advantages." Clara looked at Kozlov. He was trying very hard not to laugh. "Sergeant, those aren't weapons either." "That is what you said about the hairbrush," Vex pointed out. "You were incorrect then. Perhaps you are incorrect now." He had her there. Clara sighed and pulled out her phone, opening a shopping app. "Okay, but we're starting with clear coat. I'm not explaining glitter to command." The Carthax warriors crowded around her screen, their crests quivering with excitement as she scrolled through nail polish options. Across the hall, a delegation of Vryn diplomats watched with visible concern. Their translator was working overtime as they tried to understand why the fearsome Carthax predators were now debating the merits of matte versus glossy finish. One of them approached Clara cautiously. "Human Bennett, your species has corrupted an entire warrior culture with cosmetics. Do you understand what you have done?" Clara looked at Vex, who was now FaceTiming with a Carthax unit on the outer colonies to show them proper crest maintenance techniques. She looked at Zarn, who'd started a video channel about battle-ready grooming that had 3 million subscribers across 4 species. She looked at her squad, deadly predators who'd discovered the joy of self-care and made it a military asset. "Yeah," she said, "I really do." The Vryn diplomat's mandibles clicked in what might have been resignation. "The galaxy will never be the same." Probably not. Later that night, Clara found herself back in her quarters, sitting on her bunk with her original hairbrush, the one that started everything. Command had wanted it for a museum, but she'd refused. Some things were too important to put behind glass. Her comm buzzed. A message from Vex. "Emergency meeting 0600. We discovered hair gel. Tactical applications appear significant. Your input required." Clara smiled, set her alarm, and placed the hairbrush on her nightstand. Somewhere out in the galaxy, other species were probably conquering planets through superior firepower and tactical brilliance. Humanity was apparently going to do it through teaching apex predators about personal grooming. She could live with that. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. "Carthax beauty standards revolutionize galactic fashion industry. Human consultant Clara Bennett named most influential figure in interspecies relations." Clara turned off her phone, lay back on her bunk, and started laughing. She was still laughing when she fell asleep, her hairbrush standing guard on the nightstand like a tiny plastic sentinel, the most powerful weapon humanity ever shared with the galaxy, and it cost $3 at a pharmacy in Cleveland. The predator cubs had discovered her hairbrush. The entire squad flaunted battle manes. And somehow, impossibly, it was enough.